Welcome to 4.4. Now we're looking at dividing decimals, and there's two tricks to know for dividing decimals. The first is that the dividend, so that's the total that you're dividing, is going to have the decimal place in the same position as your quotient or answer. So here you can see how they line up. The second thing to note is that if you have a decimal divisor, so here we've been asked to divide 1 and 573 thousandths by 48 hundredths. Okay, it's going to be really hard to say, well, how many 48 hundredths can we fit into 1.57 or something? So instead, the trick here is you can move this decimal place over. So here I'm moving it 2 over to its new position. Okay, I'll just erase its old position. So I can move that decimal place over. In this case, I needed to move it 2 over to get to a whole number, as long as I do the same thing in my dividend. So here, I'm also going to move the decimal position 2 over to the right. So this is my new decimal position. Maybe I'll make that in blue, and I'm just going to erase that old one. Now we do the division as we would have in chapter 1. So how many groups of 48 can we fit into 1? Can't do it. Into 15, still can't do it. So we go into 157. And that will go, I think that'll go 3 times. Yes, 3 times. So we'll put a 3 here. 3 times 48 is 144. So we're going to subtract that. By the way, don't worry about this 0 out there in front of the 48. We could just get rid of that if we want now. Okay, we're going to do this subtraction. And we get 13. We subtracted, so we get to drop down that next number. How many groups of 48 can we fit into 133? That'll go twice. And so we get 48 times 2 is 96. We're going to have to do some borrowing here. And we get 37. Now, in the last chapter, we just would have written a remainder. But now when we're dealing with decimals, remember, we can add as many zeros up here to our dividend as we want. So I'm going to add another 0 so that I can drop it down here. Now I can ask myself, how many groups of 48 can I fit into 370? And feel free to use your calculator. And okay, so I get 7, which is 336. Okay, and that's going to leave us with 34. Now I could go even further and continue on with that decimal place, but here, since they asked us to go to the nearest 10th, I'm already out to the 100th. Remember, my decimal place is going to be lined up with my decimal place in that dividend. So 3 and 27 hundredths, or 3.27, we can round to 3.3. So our answer here then is 3.3, or more correctly, 3 3/10. All right, let's try another one. So we have 80 and 24 hundredths divided by 34. So how many groups of 34 can we fit into 80? That will go twice, because that would give me 68. Now let's do that subtraction. I'm going to have to borrow here. And I get 12. As soon as I subtract, I can drop my next number. And then I'm looking for how many groups of 34 can I fit into 122. So I tried 4, and that was 136. So that was too many. So 3 is 102. So that will work. Okay, now we can drop down another number. And now we're asking, how many groups of 34 can I fit into 204? And you should end up with 6. Exactly 6, because 6 times 34 gives us 204. So now we have nothing left over. We just have to add our decimal place here. So our decimal place, if we line it up with our decimal place and our dividend, is right here. So our answer is 2 36 Here they've asked us to round to the nearest hundredth, and it already is out to the nearest hundredth. So our answer then is 2 36. All right, go ahead and pause this video and try that next one on your own. Okay, let's try this next one. So we have 234 6/10 divided by 68. So we'll have to go out to the 234. So how many groups of 68 can we have in 234? So it ends up being 3. 3 times 68 is 204. So we can subtract that, which leaves us with 30. Now we get to drop down that 6. And then we say, how many groups of 68 can we fit into 306? So go ahead and figure that out. And I get 4. And so 4 times 68 is 272. And now we have 34 left out. Now our decimal place in our answer in our quotient is going to be right here between the 3 and the 4. And we're supposed to round out to go out to the nearest hundredth. So we better continue here, which means I'm going to drop down a 0 so that I can continue the division. And now I ask myself, how many groups of 68 can I fit into 340? So see if you can figure that out. And the answer I get is 5, which is exactly 340. So my answer then is 3 45/100ths, and we're supposed to go out to the nearest hundredth. So we are there. Okay, let's try one more together. So we have 3 42/100ths, and we're dividing by 2 5/10. So this is a case now we've got that decimal in the divisor. So we're going to move that over 1 position to the right. I'll just put it in blue and erase that. There. We're allowed to do that as long as we move the decimal place, the decimal place in that dividend over 1 to the right. So let's change its position. And now we can do our division. So 25 will go into 34 one time. If we subtract our 25, we get 9. Drop down our 2 for 92. So how many groups of 25 will fit into 92? And we can do 3 because that would be 75. And so what do we get here? So we've got 17. Now our decimal place is going to be right here between the 1 and the 3. We're trying to get out to the hundredths, so let's drop down another 0. And then how many groups of 25 can we fit into 170? Well, that would be 6, because 6 times 25 is 150. So now we're out to the hundredths position, but we still need to know if we want to round up or down. So we need to go 1 more position. So let's drop down another 0. And how many groups of 25 fit into 200? And that would be 8. 8 will be even. We're done our division now because our remainder would be 0 there. So our answer is 1 and 368 thousandths. If we want to round that to the nearest hundredth, then we'd be 1.37. So go ahead and try D, E, and F on your own. And then you can start the next video where we'll go over those together.